Introduction. Politics can be a realm of surprises and apparent contradictions. In late 2009, at the same time that US citizens were becoming more isolationist than any time recorded by modern public opinion researchers, US President Barack Obama was receiving international accolades as a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. The president's recognition abroad could not shield him from opposition at home, however, and by the early months of 2010, the country's newest self-identified grassroots political movement, the Tea Party, was launching protests against the president, who had himself been a grassroots community organizer. Yet, while President Obama was sometimes charged with being pro-big government or even with being a socialist for his support of government assistance programs, a 2010 report in The Economist magazine revealed that it had been during the Bush administration that the size of the US federal government had increased beyond anything seen since the administration of Lyndon Johnson. In fact, The Economist noted, 7,000 pages of new government regulations were added under Bush's leadership. Moreover, at the same time that information technology was broadening access to news, public opinion surveys were documenting significant gaps in information among members of the US public. Indeed, before leaving office, the former President Bush sought to correct the mistaken assumption. At one point, believed by almost 70% of the US public that Saddam Hussein had been responsible for the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Political science seeks to analyze such complexities. As you study political science, you may find that your conception of politics has been influenced by many factors. For example, consider how differently you might view your life, your goals, and your attitudes about politics if you could be transported across the boundaries of identity, gender, nationality, age, and/or economic status. Imagine, for instance, that you reside in Cairo's City of the Dead, a sprawling, crowded cemetery in which tombs share space with satellite TV dishes. The City of the Dead has been home to many of Cairo's poor and homeless, as Cairo's population growth has outpaced its infrastructure. If recent predictions by the United Nations prove to be correct, your life, one lived in congested urban quarters, will become the life of more and more men and women as the year 2030 approaches. Indeed, the United Nations cautions that the world is becoming a planet of slums. Now, imagine yourself a member of the Nukakmaku, a nomadic, self-contained people living far away from cities and deep in the forests of Colombia. If you happened to be one of the approximately 80 members of your people who recently, for reasons unclear to outsiders, left the Amazonian jungle and entered San Jose del Guavere, you encountered an unfamiliar world. You brought with you no word for money. You have no understanding of airplanes. You have asked if they move on hidden paths in the sky. And you have never heard of Colombia, the country in whose borders you and your people have existed for hundreds of years. Try to imagine sharing the experiences of Tsutsmu Yamaguchi. Mr. Yamaguchi was working in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, the day the atomic bomb was dropped on the city. The atomic bomb of Hiroshima killed 140,000 people. but somehow he survived. Feeling profoundly fortunate to be alive still, he left Hiroshima and headed for his home, Nagasaki. On August 9th, an atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, and Mr. Yamaguchi again survived. One of perhaps more than 100 people to have survived 2 atomic bombs, Mr. Yamaguchi went on to become a teacher and to raise a family. It was only in his old age that he started speaking publicly about his life as a Hibakusha, atomic bombing victim, and his views on a nuclear war. Before his death in 2010, Mr. Yamaguchi stated that, in his opinion, the only people who should have the power to authorize the use of nuclear weapons were mothers with young children. Try imagining your life as Dena al-Atassi. You are the only Muslim in your high school in Bunnell, Florida, a daughter of a Syrian father and a US mother. You received death threats for simply wearing a headscarf, hijab. Your stepmother stopped wearing her scarf out of fear of a backlash against all Muslims after 9/11. However, you find strength in following the example of Muslim women who wear the head covering, and you pledge to never let your fear compel you to remove the hijab. Imagine you are Hiran Watada. When you are studying for your business degree at Hawaii Pacific University in Honolulu, the United States was attacked on 9/11. You joined the military to be part of the fight against terrorism, but over time, you became increasingly critical of the Iraq War. Determined to serve your country and your conscience, you volunteered to be deployed to Afghanistan, but you refused to serve in Iraq. The military brought charges against you, and your court-martial ended in a mistrial in February 2007.